Hello. Hi, how you doing? I'm Pete from Microsoft in the UK.
Morning. Hi, I'm Mike TAULTY, also from Microsoft's developer group here in the UK. Nice to see you. Nice to see so many of you here. And there should be something up there. Do we need to click? No. Let's try that. Super. Hi. Very nice to be here. We're going to talk about HoloLens. Nice to see so many of you here as well. We are at Virtual Reality Connects, and I want to start by saying it's interesting how the language switches and changes as we go along. When I was a boy, I remember there was only one reality that we could all agree on, and that seems to have changed. There are times now when I can say there's a chair over there, and Pete will say, no, there's not. And then we can have a debate about that. I was always perhaps living in my own reality, but these things do seem to have changed. I think, as has been the nature of our industry for the longest time, we build what we see and what we read about in science fiction. We are making those things very much real. I can remember going to watch this film with my wife, which wasn't a great idea. Not that she's not a nice person to watch films with and so on, but this wasn't her kind of thing. And we came out of watching The Matrix, and I can remember my wife saying, that's just a horrible vision of the future. You've got people wired directly into their nervous system, into this sort of machine, and it takes over their senses, and this sort of dystopian future. And I said, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's terrible. But I was actually thinking it looked quite cool to me. So it's an interesting reflection on the two different ways of thinking about this. This is Virtual Reality Connects. I do feel a little bit fraudulent in that we are not going to talk about a virtual reality device. We're going to talk about the HoloLens. And if there is any chance that you haven't seen HoloLens in any shape or form before, we thought we'd just show you a little video that just introduces the device.
Look around. Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen? Where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
And new ways to create the things we imagine. Because when you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. This is Microsoft HoloLens.
So hopefully if you hadn't seen the device at all before, and that might not be many of you amongst this audience, then that just gives you a flavor of the kind of things that it can do. HoloLens is a mixed reality device. The idea is that we're blending 3D virtual content into the real world. So you take the physical world and the virtual world and put the two things together. So the idea of the device is that when I'm wearing the device, firstly I can continue to see you. I won't put the device on right now, but I continue to see you. I can continue to hear you. It doesn't take over my vision. It doesn't take over my hearing. It doesn't stop me, because we don't have any sort of controllers or anything like that, from gesturing and interacting in a normal way. It also doesn't stop me from wandering around. So when I'm wearing the device, I can wander anywhere that I want to. I'm not tied to some machine that yanks me back across the room at some point. And because I can see where I'm going, I could do things like step off that stage. What we then do is we take 3D virtual objects, we call them holograms, and the magic of the device really in many ways is you take those holograms and position them in the real world. So I can take some kind of 3D object, I can position it down there on the floor, walk away from it, it will stay on the floor exactly where I left it. That's also true if I leave the room and come back, and that's also true if I leave the room and come back in a week, it will still be there. And I can wander around it in an immersive 3D manner and look at it from all sides. And in order to make that happen, the device has to have a whole ton of understanding about the room and where you are within that space. And that's really what the hardware enables.
Click forward. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the hardware itself. So it's a Windows 10 PC. It's fully untethered, no wires or anything. It's in 2 parts. There's this kind of headband which takes all the weight. It's quite heavy. It's about 600 grams, something like that. You wouldn't really want to wear it all day. It's got a whole load of sensors inside, and when I first got my HoloLens, the first thing I did, I went to the store and I got an app called Holograms, and you get a kind of collection of holograms. You can choose from there, and I chose a tiger, and I put it down there, and I put it at the end of my bed, and I scaled it up, so I had a full-size tiger there, which is quite nice. And as I rotated my head, I realised that, you know, this device must know where it is rotationally in order to keep that thing where it is, and as I paced up and down, it must know where I am in the world, right? Otherwise, that thing's going to start moving around, jittering and so on. So the way that that's achieved is through these sensors. There's a depth sensor there at the top in the middle, and then we've got 4 environment sensing cameras, 2 on either side. And they combine to give this kind of 6 degrees of freedom tracking, which is really like a world scale. So, you can move from room to room, and things will stay where you left them. So when I came back to my bed, the tiger was still there, which is cool. There's an RGB camera on the front, which powers a kind of Skype experience that you have. Somebody calls you on Skype, they can see into your world, and they can see what you see. And there's a little plugin you can get for Skype, which enables them to draw into your world as well, which kind of powers, remote assistance type experiences. There's 4 microphones, so the device does near-field and far-field sensing. I found myself in a room with 30 other people wearing HoloLens. I said, "Hey Cortana, shut down." Nothing happened. I said, well, my device shut down. I was hoping all the others would, but they never did. So, the optics. You can't go and buy this stuff off the shelf. It's custom optics. So we've got these transparent lenses known as waveguides. There are 2 projectors at the top, either side, 1 for each eye, which produce stereoscopic images, which travel along the waveguide and are gated out into the pupil. So that's the way the light gets into your eye. And as you can imagine, with this whole load of sensors, there's a lot of data. And as with, traditionally with augmented reality solutions, you've got a kind of latency budget. You need to get the pixels on the screen or the light into your eye within, at least under 20 milliseconds. Now, so how do you process all that data and get it out into your eye quickly? Well, Microsoft have designed and engineered a new chip called the holographic processing unit, which is designed to do just that. So it will process the data down into a form the CPU and the GPU can manage in order to get below that 20 millisecond latency. Also, not to be underestimated actually, there are 2 speakers, one on either side. You see the red bits there. They look kind of innocuous, but they produce quite dramatic 3D spatial sound. So that's powered by head-related transfer functions, which are basically just audio filters, which kind of mimic the way that sound arrives at each ear. And it's really quite effective, and one of the paradigms of building user interface when you can only see what's in front of you, and yet you are modeling a 3D kind of panorama. Right, so if inside my app, if a tiger roars behind me, I'm going to turn around. Well, I'm definitely going to turn around at that point. But you can use this spatial sound to direct the user, and it appears in all of the experiences that you get on HoloLens. Very important.
So HoloLens is very much two things. On the one hand, it's, I'm going to say, a regular Windows 10 device. So you may not have been tracking what Microsoft's been doing in recent times. That's perfectly reasonable to let that wander by. But we've been doing a lot of work with our operating system such that we have a software stack that is largely built from the same components across all of the devices that we now run Windows on. And Windows today runs on small IoT devices like Raspberry Pis. It runs on phones, it runs on tablets, convertibles, laptops, desktops, all-in-ones, devices like the Surface Pro, Surface Book, Surface Studio, all available from your local Microsoft store. Up into devices that you may not have seen, like the Surface Hub, which is a big 55 or 72-inch collaboration screen. And then onto the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, and also the HoloLens. All of those things today are Windows devices. All of those things are Windows 10 devices. They all get installed pretty much the same way. They all get their updates from Windows Update. And as a developer, if you know about developing for, say, Xbox One, you also know something about developing for a laptop or a phone or an IoT device or a HoloLens. So in one way, HoloLens is just a Windows 10 device. But it's a very specialized Windows 10 device. We have these things called the holographic extensions that add that extra bit of magic to Windows in order to enable those kinds of scenarios. And what this means is that we've also been working on our app platform. We call it the Universal Windows Platform. And if you build a Universal Windows app, again, that will run on things like a PC, a laptop, but it'll also run a phone, an IoT device, or an Xbox. Obviously, you as a developer have to make some accommodation for the differences between the device. And being a Windows app developer today is an interesting thing, because even within one form factor, and I was going to point to my Surface Book, but I've just realized I'm not presenting from my Surface Book right now. Even within one form factor, at any one time, I might have mouse and keyboard and speech and touch, but then I might lift the lid off my Surface Book, and I just lost mouse and keyboard. And as a developer, that's a challenge. You know, your primary input mechanism just changed. And then when you move from one device to another, like a HoloLens, your input mechanisms change a lot. And because it is a Windows 10 device, you absolutely can attach a Bluetooth keyboard and a mouse if you wanted to, but we don't think many people actually would. Your input mechanisms move to be gaze, because the device knows where you're looking, so your head kind of becomes a cursor. It becomes gesture. The device understands certain gestures. And it becomes speech. And so your input mechanisms and output mechanisms change, but it's the same Universal Windows platform that spans across all of the Windows devices. Just to say, we have made announcements recently, as in this year and just towards the tail end of last year, that we are bringing that Windows holographic platform to other devices with Microsoft partners. So there are Windows holographic devices coming from partners like Lenovo, like Dell, like HP, like Acer and Asus. They're all building devices which will run Windows holographic, stretching down to price points that start as low as $300. These won't be, you know, a sort of cheap copy of a HoloLens. That's not the intention. The likelihood is those devices would be tethered to a PC, although it's not a particularly highly spec PC that we're mandating. Those devices wouldn't have the transparent lenses that Pete talked about a moment ago. They'd be more like VR devices. But we are offering people our inside-out tracking that HoloLens uses to figure out a room and your movement within that room. So you could expect that that might show up on some of those devices as well. I'm going to hand back to you, Pete, to talk about developing.
Okay, so really there's two different kinds of apps you can build then from that you can take. If you have a UWP app existing, then you can just go to the store and say, I want this to run on HoloLens, and it will appear in there as a 2D projection inside your world. So what will generally happen is when somebody runs your app, they can then position it against one of the walls. So if I'm in here, I might want to have like a giant Netflix over there, maybe. I don't know, maybe I've got my mail over there and my calendar over here. And of course, those things kind of remain there. So it's quite nice. If I come back here 6 months later with my device, then those things will still be there.
Yeah, it's
So-
nice, but you're not mentioning the flip side of that, which is when you go back to your house, there's a bunch of stuff to tidy up all around your walls.
That
so
is
in my
true.
house, I have to go in and tidy, which is ridiculous, but there's virtual stuff all over the wall.
If you're giving demos to people, it can be quite a lot of work. You can have, 50 holograms
I predict a
hanging
job
around.
for a virtual cleaner. I might be the first person who sets that up. Kind of like
Can't remember
Ghostbusters, isn't it? It's that sort of thing.
So, yeah, the development environment is just standard UWP, so Visual Studio, Windows 10. You can also extend your 2D app. So if you've got a 2D app and there's a particular use case or scenario inside there which you want to be holographic, then you can switch. You can go over into the holographic space, which then you take over the whole device. Okay, and then you can switch back to your 2D app. So you can sort of grow a holographic app from a 2D app effectively. So talking of holographic apps, if you want to build one of those, I'd say 85% of apps that are built in this way use Unity. We have a Holo Toolkit, which is built for Unity, which makes some of the stuff in there very easy to develop for. By the way, how many people in here have tried a HoloLens? I forgot to ask at the start.
Good job we showed you that introductory video.
Yes, good job you saw that. If you want to, optimize that app maybe, or maybe you want to get some extra performance, you can use C++ and DirectX. A bit more of a learning curve involved there. That's quite kind of low, it's quite low level. Unity, the gap between Unity and C++ and DirectX is pretty huge.
Okay, so HoloLens is not a consumer device. It's very much a commercial device today. We wanted to give you an example of the sorts of things that people are doing with the device. There's tons of these on YouTube, so given that we've only got a few minutes here, we thought we'd just pick out one. We see a lot of interest from people who are doing things like design, architecture, manufacture, maintenance, those kinds of things. So we picked out an example from architecture just to show you something that people have built and are using on HoloLens.
Volvo is really a human-centric company. That's the core focus of everything we've done in terms of the products we develop, but also the way we interact with their customers. All people know that we stand for safety, but Volvo is so much more. HoloLens helps us to push the envelope on innovation for our customers.
The HoloLens is a device that you put on your head, and it doesn't intrude in any of the things you do, but it also extends the realities around you.
You can do something you could never do before. You can see the soul of the car. You can strip the body out and stay with the skeleton, and you can play around with it.
The HoloLens can allow our customers to see features, colors, options. So rather than working on the computer, seeing things, you can be part of the experience.
No one understands how car sensors actually works today. Through the HoloLens, you can see how the car perceives you. And then you give me as a human being the vantage point of a sensor. It helps to build a much better trust in this type of systems.
For example, you see a car coming in front of you. The car has features that could aid in that situation. We have a lot of features that we don't necessarily want you to experience it all, but it's part of our proposition. You're buying into the safest car brand in the world.
One of the great things that was said to us by Volvo when we started this was that Volvo loves technology, but only if it makes people's lives simpler. Microsoft HoloLens lets people take imagination and make it real, much more efficiently and in a much more collaborative manner.
HoloLens will not only help us in the car buying process at the dealership, it can evolve into many areas. We think there are many alternative applications of this tool in the future, and Volvo clearly has an aspiration to break out of the pack.
It's cool. It's way cool.
So there you go. Not only is it cool, it's way cool. And you might notice I do live in my own reality because I said, here's an example that's about architecture. That was nothing to do with architecture whatsoever. And I had a load of text behind me saying, manufacture, design, and retail. And you let me wibble on saying, this is about architecture. You think, no, it's not. That's not about architecture. Sorry about that, but still, great example of use of HoloLens. If you want to get started with this stuff, the best place to go really is to hololens.com. You can get everything from there. You can buy a HoloLens there. You can get the developer kit from there. It's worth saying that you don't need to go and buy anything to get started in terms of development. We have an emulator for HoloLens that you can use, and you can download free copies of Visual Studio and all the bits you need for Unity. You can start developing without spending any money on a HoloLens device. But the device is available in the UK. We have 2 editions of HoloLens. There's a developer edition for people who want to try and build something out. There's a commercial edition which you would actually use in the real world if you wanted to deploy it into a customer and have it managed in an enterprise manner and those kinds of things. I think we're bang up against time, so we should stop. We just want to say thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Hope you found it useful. We are around the show, so if you want to chat about HoloLens or anything Windows or Microsoft related, just grab me or Pete and we'd love to chat to you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.